Hello everyone, Dawny Wanders here, and today I have wandered to the Shubenacadie waterway. Throughout this series of videos, I'll be joined by my friend, marine historian and Shubenacadie Canal volunteer, Richard MacMichael.
The canal itself is probably the most ambitious project ever undertaken in Nova Scotia during the industrial age.
We'll explore its history and how today it has transformed into one of the best recreational corridors in all of Canada. Welcome to the Shubenacadie Canal. One of my favorite ways to enjoy Lake Banook, which is our next stop, is on my bicycle. So I know that it's not super normal to want to explore a lake by bike, but Lake Banook has really great walking trails all around it. So I'm just arriving at the lake, and before I get going, I want to stop and show you Lock 1. Lock 1 is just down here at the bottom of this little gravel path behind the park, which is right back there, that is at the downstream end of Lake Banook. And of course, I will show you Lock 1, but I think Richard MacMichael will do a much better job. So here he is.
This behind me is the lower elevation of Lock 1. Lock 1 was one of the original locks begun in 1826, and it is linking the channel that runs along here from Sullivan's Pond up to Lake Banook. And Lock 1 was one of the smaller locks along the canal. It would raise the tugboat and the barge approximately 1.5 meters from this elevation up to the Lake Banook level. From Lake Banook into Lake Micmac was clear sailing. When you get to the end of Lake Micmac, they also had a little bit of a problem, and that's where you'll find Locks 2 and Lock 3 today. Most interesting thing about this lock is it still has a functional purpose almost 100 years after the Shubenacadie Canal went out of business, because in 1971 there was a huge tropical storm that hit Halifax. Lake Micmac overflowed into Lake Banook, which overflowed into Sullivan's Pond, and a large section of downtown Dartmouth ended up underwater. And so the door of this lock has been retrofitted now so that they are able to manually control the water level in Lake Banook to cut down on the opportunities for there being another flood in downtown Dartmouth. So 100 years after the canal goes out of business in 1871, Lock 1 has now been retrofitted to serve a practical purpose today.
So I'm just going to leave the lower elevation of Lock 1 behind. And as you can see at the moment, there's lots of vegetation. And you can see the lock kind of through the bushes just over there. And right up here, we emerge onto this lovely little playground.
So we're now at the upper elevation of Lock 1. And as I say, this lock was begun in 1826, and it's one of the locks that was built in a traditional European fashion, whereby the walls of the locks are constructed completely out of cut granite blocks. And the granite blocks were one of the logistical choices made in the first phase of construction of the canal that ended up causing an absolute nightmare for the canal company. Granite was a logical choice. It's prevalent here in Nova Scotia, but it was discovered that when it was cut into blocks, it simply did not weather the freeze-thaw winters we enjoy so much here in Nova Scotia. And they had to be repaired on a regular basis. In fact, one of the walls of the locks actually started to collapse after only 2 winters. And it was this that led to the massive cost overruns that led to the first phase of construction stopping in 1831 when the cash ran out. And the locks are pretty straightforward. The back doors would open, the tugboat and the barge would sail in, Then the doors were closed using the huge paddle arms. The lock would fill up with water from the Lake Banook level, floating the barge and the tugboat up from the Sullivan's Pond level to Lake Banook when they begin to make their way up the lake towards Lake Micmac. When the barge and the tugboat had gone, you now have a lock that's full of water. Rather than simply opening up the doors and creating a mini tidal wave, which would inconvenience fishermen and church picnics, each of the doors had 2 sluice gates. And the staff would actually walk out onto the lock and manually open up the sluice gates to allow the water to equalize back down to the next level. And the 6 major locks along the canal are all built in that fashion. Though obviously when the second phase of construction starts in 1854, they use a new material and a new methodology to build the new locks. And more about that when we visit Lock 2. And up this way, we find Lake Banook. And Banook flows seamlessly into Lake Micmac, so this section of the canal posed absolutely no problems at all. And as you can see today, there's a paddling competition going on. There's a heated rivalry between the 3 clubs on the lake, Micmac, Banook, and Canoe, and then a number of the other paddling clubs come here as well for competitions every year. The past, the lake has hosted a number of international paddling competitions, one as recently as 2022, and in 2023, Lake Banook was the host venue for the paddling competitions in the North American Indigenous Games.
Well, now that we've had a nice look at Lock 1, let's carry on our way. And we're only going about maybe 100 meters until I get to my next stop. And here we are, arriving at my favorite statue in Dartmouth. This statue was put in, I think around 10 years ago, and it's a canoe. Isn't it awesome? I just think it's such a cool statue. Like, I like statues of people, I guess, you know, the classic dude on a horse and all that stuff. But this one is just so creative and beautiful. And I like that you can kind of get up and really enjoy it, like inside of the statue. I also love the inscription. The canoe is a gift from the earth to the Mi'kmaq and from the Mi'kmaq to the world. And of course, over on this side, I won't say it because I will completely butcher the pronunciation, but there it is in Mi'kmaq as well. Okay, I'm back on the multi-use trail. This part of the trail is usually very busy, so I will take my time as I cycle around this part of Lake Banook. So we have Banook Canoe Club across the harbor, and I've just gone around Canoe, and I'm passing by the Micmac AAC, Amateur Aquatic Club, which is very busy tonight. And now you're getting your first good look at the lake. So this lake, this and the next lake up in the chain, which is called Micmac, they have produced like dozens and dozens of world champion paddlers. And in fact, I think Olympians as well. Dartmouth is known as the city of lakes, so it's only fitting that we have lots and lots of paddlers. Doesn't look like there's any competitions happening this evening, but this place is usually packed on weekends. And let's just pop down here and have a quick look on the wooden boardwalk. on just an absolutely gorgeous night. I don't typically cycle on the wooden boardwalk because it's not that comfortable. Like, it's a little bit bumpy, but for the sake of the video, I'm getting jostled around here. What's nice about the multi-use trail too are these shelters that if you want to just like stop, have a rest, get some shade, get out of the rain. There's a couple of them along here, and they're just a really nice stopping place, even though I'm not stopping at the moment because I'm headed for our next destination. Thank you. So here we are at Graham's Grove, which is a great little park, another place that you can enjoy Lake Banook. And we have the Kiwanis cones here, which is always a really popular stopping point. For those of you not from Nova Scotia, or the Maritimes, I guess, Moonmist is this beautiful ice cream. Very popular here. It's 3 flavors. It's banana, it's grape, and it's bubblegum, which admittedly sounds kind of disgusting. But believe me when I tell you, it is delicious. Docked out in the lake there is one of the dragon boats. They're really long. It's really impressive when you see the people using them. Like all the people all pulling together. From this end of the lake, which is the upstream, sort of the upstream end of Banook, you can see the canoe clubs are down there, and the big tower where the adjudicators, adjudicate the races that they hold here on the lake, the canoe and kayak, and I think rowing as well here on Lake Banook. Just a little bit to the right of that is a little public beach called Birch Cove, and I'll pop a clip in here of what that little beach looks like, but I'm not going to head over there tonight. And I'm coming to the end of the public laneway around the lake. There are houses along this side of the lake, so the trail doesn't actually go around the entire lake. But it goes around most of it, and in order to make a loop out of it, you just have to go on a couple of very quiet city streets to get over to Birch Cove. And then that's where the trail picks up again. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm just going to head for home. But while I get to the end of my cycling journey here this evening, I just want to thank you for watching, and of course thank you to Richard MacMichael, who was featured earlier in this video. He will feature heavily, I think, in the next video, or maybe the video after that. I'm not sure yet, but you will see Richard many times again throughout this series. So thank you, Richard. And I guess now that I've come back to the city streets and I'm going uphill, I'd better wrap it up here. So thank you for watching, and Dawny Wanders. We'll see you in the next one.